Okay, next up, I'd like to introduce you to our second keynote speaker, Søren Spelling. Søren is the founder and CPO of Ucommerce. His goal, bringing the best of content and commerce together, as well as creating delightful experiences for developers working with the platform. With Ucommerce and Umbraco working closely together since 2009, Søren is excited to join the US Umbraco Festival once more. Thank you so much for joining us again, Søren. I will kick it over to you.
Thank you very much. So happy to be here. I've had the opportunity to join the US Festival a few times. This is the first time in like virtual reality space here. So let's see how it kicks off. I too am really looking forward to get to travel again and go see everybody like the other years, but it's going to have to do this way. So today I have the pleasure of talking about a topic that I really love and enjoy, which is leveraging Umbraco for enterprise scenarios. And what we're going to talk about today is not surprisingly, given my own background in e-commerce, but it has a B2B flavor today, because the reason I wanted to bring this up is because over the past 5 years, we've seen an interesting movement within e-commerce where, B2C has been very evolved over many years, but we're seeing B2B pick up where it started with the major players within B2B moving to digital a little bit slowly, but they got there. And now we're looking at the mid-tier B2B companies moving into B2B. So there is a huge opportunity for Umbraco and Ucommerce to attack this particular space because the two platforms together are uniquely positioned price-wise, extensibility-wise to really go in and do some damage in this space here. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the challenges for B2B, some of the things that you're most likely to come and to see and find when you engage on a B2B project. And so the first thing that you're likely to see is that we need to figure out how to fit within an existing system ecosystem within a B2B company. B2Bs have a bunch of systems already in place, ERP systems, WMS systems, CRM system, a bunch of things that need to work in concert. It's not so different from B2C. And many of these pieces are in place, both for B2B and B2C, but the level of integration tends to be much tighter within B2B. And I think we have a really good way of dealing with that with some of the things that Umbraco is doing and some of the things that Ucommerce is doing. The next thing we'll look at is how do we deal with many trading partners? So the very nature of B2B, as many of you know, is dealing with many trading partners, especially for the US, where the market is so vast. We're dealing with a seller of tractor parts, not in the US but in Canada, who has like a range of repair shops. 1,500 of them that they work with to sell B2B parts for these tractors. And it's just interesting to see how we can deal with that within Umbraco and Ucommerce going forward. The next thing we'll deal with is the product information within the solution. So B2B is a little different because it tends to have a lot of products and a lot of complex products, lots of configuration, customization. So how do we deal with that? And then finally, and this is sort of the classic, B2B situation is the pricing, right? How do we deal with complex pricing within B2B? So for the purposes of this particular talk, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about how headless commerce can be used to integrate within the existing ecosystem within a B2B. I will cover enterprise scalability. How can we deal with many and complex products? And we'll take a look at how multi-channel can be leveraged within B2B. So the act of running multiple stores within one instance of Umbraco and Ucommerce. And then finally, I will talk about framework first and how we can leverage that for dealing with complex business requirements, which are very, very pervasive within B2B. Before I do that, I know some of you will not have seen Ucommerce before. So I'm going to give you a demo. Usually I would like to do like a live demo where I click through and just give you a sense of how everything plays together. Today, you're going to have to deal with animated GIFs and screenshots because of the way that we're doing this. So if you want to see the full thing, it is available on the interwebs. You can find our demo sites and click through and see the latest versions of Ucommerce running within Umbraco. So let's take a look. Back in 2009, and this is funny, my co-founder Lasse found the Flickr album from 2009, Code Garden, when we launched the first version of Umbraco, and it was quite fun to see how young everybody looks. Myself, him, everybody in the community that we know. But even ever since 2009, what we've been doing is trying to learn how to spell Ucommerce. And as you can see, it's not going great. I missed an E there on the end of our own name. Good stuff. And B, it is to bring content and commerce together. Umbraco is an awesome CMS, as you know, and I feel that bringing content and commerce together is a pretty cool value proposition for customers, because it's not just about putting products on the shelves. It's about telling a bigger story. And that's where the content piece comes into play. So let's take a look at some of the things that we did. With Ucommerce 9, we introduced a new view stack for e-commerce. So when we launched the original version of Ucommerce, what we were doing was we're basically using a lot of the UI metaphors that Umbraco brought to the table. That's great when you're sort of primarily a developer and not a UX person, because you don't have to think too much about it. But the challenge is managing an e-commerce solution and managing a content solution are two very different things. And so with Condo, our new UI stack, we wanted to bring together sort of UI metaphors that are more appropriate to e-commerce, but still have them work within Umbraco. So here's the first thing. What you're looking at here is the new Stores app of Ucommerce. And basically, as you can tell from the number there, one of the unique requirements for e-commerce is the need to maintain many stores within one CMS. You're probably used to maintaining multiple websites within Umbraco. And you may have one per country or per language, or however you sort of decide to set it up. But for example, take the tractor case that I mentioned before. They have 1,500 stores, so managing that as nodes within a tree can become quite cumbersome. And so we came up with this way of dealing with stores where we can add some search capability. We can sort of create an adaptive UI that will sort of change depending on how much data is within the system, because that's one of the things that we found within e-commerce. We work with very small solutions because of the diverse nature of Umbraco, where there's one store, one currency, that's it, and all the way up to a couple of thousand stores within there. So we came up with this notion of an adaptive UI. So what you're looking at here is something that's appropriate to when you have hundreds of stores. But for example, if you only maintain 2 stores, the UI will adapt and present fewer doohickeys for you to deal with. So sort of the idea is to try and reduce the cognitive overhead in what you have to deal with, because e-commerce scales up and down. So just one example. Another example is the way that we deal with navigation within the system. So at the top there you see 4 gray boxes. That's the catalog navigation. So this is where you click through the structure of your stores and catalogs and categories. And one of the cool things we're able to do with the catalog builder there is to support keyboard navigation. So you can sort of click through with the keyboard, so you can really quickly find the catalog or category you're looking for. You can create new categories hitting a key on the keyboard. You can reorder within. So we were able to integrate a bunch of different UI metaphors, and at the same time provide a better overview of where you're actually at within a certain catalog structure, which can get quite deep. At the same time, we also wanted to support a sort of a more search-based approach to e-commerce. So this is the same view. What I did here was basically just click the search button at the top of the UI there to enable me to find products really quickly. If I have 1 million products in there, clicking through the structure is maybe a little cumbersome. So this is a way to really quickly navigate through lots and lots of products, regardless of where they are within the system. One more example, just one of the things that we found over and over again is because e-commerce is so taxonomy driven, right? Each and every e-commerce solution will have different products, different fields and all that, exactly like when you're setting up document types within Umbraco. Same thing is true for e-commerce. And so one of the things that we did was to create lists that have much more flexibility and dynamism. So you can work with them in different ways depending on who you are. So for example, you may be a price range manager, and what you're interested in is just the prices. So you can customize the fields that are available. You can sort of reorder columns, you can remove columns, add multiple price lists in. It's just a little example of something that's super duper important within e-commerce. And of course, these views are stored for you personally. So when you log back in as the range manager or the price range manager, you can see what you saw before. So just a few small examples of how all this works. And of course, it's all integrated within Umbraco. So once you log into Umbraco, as you can see, all the tools are available. When you add media, for example, it comes out of Umbraco, multiple languages. When you set that up within Umbraco, Ucommerce just follows along. So everywhere where we can, we try and leverage Umbraco to its fullest potential, while still catering to e-commerce by providing experiences that are more sort of appropriate for what we're trying to solve there. Finally, just one little thing that I wanted to show is that little black box down there in the right-hand corner at the bottom. What it says is, that I changed a text field in the middle of the editor there, and it says undo in the text button there. What we wanted to do was to support the notion of confident users within the e-commerce platform. So there is no save button within the UIs that we created. What we have instead is the ability to just edit the things that you want, and then you get these little notifications that we saved everything for you. And if you're not happy with what you did, you can undo the change. They sort of stack up, so you can undo over and over again until you sort of return back to where you were. So instead of saving or doing your changes, then looking at them and figuring out whether it's the right thing, you just do your changes. And if it's not the right thing, you just undo until you're back to the starting point. So a little example of something where we wanted to make it a little easier and a little more confident for customers to use it. And then finally, just in case you didn't know, we cover a bunch of different functionalities. The Condo back office is what we just looked at there at the top. Catalog system, of course, multi-channel support, multiple catalogs, categories, multiple price lists that we're going to take a little bit of a look at as we go through the slides. Transaction foundation there in the middle to deal with baskets, payments, order processing, all that good stuff. Promotions. In fact, we're building out the new version of the promotion system of Ucommerce right now. We're hoping to ship the first preview version of that on May 25th or 6th. I can never remember which one it is, but one of the two. So very soon you'll be able to see what we're thinking there. What we're building is a result of 3 months of UX research with our partners and customers to figure out how can we set up promotions in the easiest way possible, because it can get quite tricky with all the options and possibilities in there. And I think we've arrived at a pretty cool version of that. And I cannot wait to show you when we launch that thing. And then finally, order management, of course. Now, all this rests on top of what we call the multi-channel foundation. And it's actually super important for what we're going to talk about today for B2B. Multi-channel foundation is really just a combination of Umbraco's ability to set up multiple websites and Ucommerce's ability to set up multiple stores and then tie the two together in a seamless whole. So for B2B, for example, you would have one store per trading partner, for example, to deal with some of the complexities that we're going to look at a little later on. Now, but before we dig into the concrete examples of B2B, let's talk about B2B architecture and how we can go. And one of the things that I'm super excited about is headless commerce, because I've been working with e-commerce for, 20 years now. And one of the things that we have been struggling with over the years, and we've sort of been dipping into headless commerce a little bit without actually knowing it, was the challenge of integration. So every company will have an ERP system that calls on product information and price information. But especially within B2B, there are complexities within pricing that we're going to talk about in a little bit, which actually just makes headless commerce make a lot of sense, because at the end of the day, it's all about using the various systems to their fullest capability. The idea is really, instead of sort of having the world revolve around the CMS or the commerce platform or whatever else you're building on, the world revolves around the solution, and you tie in the various systems that you have. And for e-commerce, that is particularly important because there are so many pieces that go into building a successful e-commerce platform and solution to the customer, that once you build it, and if it's too tightly integrated, you will end up in a situation where replacing one of those bits is super difficult. So by adopting this worldview instead, where the solution is the hub of the wheel, you can then implement e-commerce piecemeal over time. You can basically just say, okay, we're going to start with maybe Umbraco to get the website up and running, maybe add some e-commerce in there for transactions. Maybe later on you want some recommendations in there, some marketing automation, and you tie that in one system at a time until you have the full system. So that's sort of the initial implementation approach you can take. But a system like this will live over many years. That is particularly true for e-commerce. We have customers who've been with us almost since the beginning, 6-7 years, and their systems have just evolved over time to do more and more stuff. And by loosely integrating multiple pieces, you have the option of selecting best of breed, the best piece to do everything, but also change those pieces. If one becomes obsolete, you can sort of implement a new approach. So that's sort of the overall way that to think about how to integrate e-commerce into the ecosystem of B2B. And another interesting notion is just the way how Ucommerce and Umbraco is used within this. So let's just simplify the view just a little bit here. So this is the traditional way that Umbraco and Ucommerce has been used. So Ucommerce lives within Umbraco, so it's one thing, and then the solution leverages that. So we have these two components to work with. The upside of that is that the CMS has full access to the e-commerce platform, and the e-commerce platform has full access to the CMS, so we can create a very tightly coupled solution with shared login and things like that. And that's really good. However, if you find yourself in a situation where you want to swap out the e-commerce platform or the CMS, or maybe you need to upgrade the CMS but not the e-commerce platform, you can get kind of stuck in this. Mostly, it just works. But maybe we can come up with something different that's maybe even twice as good. And what's twice as good as one Umbraco? 2 Umbraco instances, right? So what you can do as well in a headless mode, where, if you think about it, not from an Umbraco or a Ucommerce perspective, what you would normally do is you would take a pure play e-commerce platform, a pure play headless CMS, and you would sort of leverage them independently from the solution. And Umbraco is a great opportunity to do that as well, because you can have Ucommerce living on its own Umbraco instance, effectively making it the commerce instance of this view. And you can have Umbraco as the hub of content live separately, which will give you more flexibility going forward, just in case you need to do something different. Upgrades is a sort of a fairly low-hanging fruit where you can sort of upgrade one to the other. Maybe you want Umbraco 9, and we're not quite ready with our Umbraco 9 core version yet. It is coming, by the way, but this would actually allow you to use different tech stacks for a scenario like that. So that's just a little bit about headless and how we play. We're actually, as a company, we're moving more and more towards headless, so more and more web APIs and things like that. And I'm going to talk about that towards the end of the presentation here. So what makes this go? Well, headless is great. APIs enable it, but there is that other thing. And I feel like it's the elephant in the room that nobody's really talking about too much when it comes to headless. And that other thing, of course, is integration. Because when you pick best of breed, you will end up in a situation where you have all the best pieces. But the question is, do they actually talk together? And the answer in many cases is not so much. You will have to create integrations between this marketing automation platform, this CMS, this commerce platform. With Umbraco and Ucommerce, we've taken care of one of the major integrations by just clicking the two together so they work seamlessly. And we have actually started working with other players within the Umbraco space to bring more of these integrations closer to fruition. And I'm gonna show you one of those in a little bit. But before I do, let's just recap headless here. So first up, you can go best of breed. You can pick the best of everything. So, we've seen a bunch of CMSs that try to be more than just a CMS. They try to personalize. They try to be marketing automation. They try to be almost a CRM. And, trying to do all of it means that you don't necessarily do all of it that well. You do all of it, but only up to a certain point. So it's like a common lower denominator, which is why I love Umbraco so much, because Umbraco does not try to be more than what it is, as does Ucommerce. Umbraco does the content piece, Ucommerce does the commerce piece, and bringing them together via integration just means that we have, best of both worlds. Second up, you can implement piecemeal, right? So you can implement, you can have a vision starting out to go to sort of the extreme of doing unified commerce or omnichannel commerce, but you can do it in little steps. You can create a roadmap that evolves over time, and you can sort of take it one project at a time, which is really, I love the notion of taking baby steps whenever you're implementing something. So you do one thing, you figure out if it works. If it works, you move on to the next thing, and you can do that at a macro level as well. Next thing, long run flexibility. So these solutions, we don't just build them for 1, 2, or 3 years. These solutions are mission critical. They need to be up at all times. They need to evolve. So once you have a headless solution where you have the individual pieces working together, you will have an easier time because they have a very clearly defined responsibility of swapping out pieces as the solution matures. So it's just a really good place to be as a business. And it's a really strong, powerful message for you as you go out and sell solutions to businesses. And then finally, do the pieces work together? And this is one of the things that that we're trying to work at with e-commerce. And one of the things that we're doing is for e-commerce, product information management is absolutely key. And so last year we decided to create a strategic alliance with another Danish company which also does e-commerce with an Umbraco twist, and that company is Struct. So you may not have heard of these, but it's a super awesome PIM system which has a clear focus of just dealing with product information management. And what we've done with Struct is that Struct and us came together to see if we could create what we call an integration accelerator, which enables you to connect Struct and Ucommerce a little more easily. It's not an out-of-the-box integration by any stretch of the imagination, but it does help you along and provide you a set of tools that you can customize to click the two platforms together. So you actually already have the three major pieces of a headless platform. You have Umbraco for the CMS, you have Ucommerce for commerce, and you have Struct for product information management and product enrichment. Just a little example of how we're trying to work alliances a little more going forward. Next up, enterprise scalability. This is something we introduced only 1 month ago. The idea is that for e-commerce, scalability is super important. We've all heard about Black Friday and what can happen. And for B2B especially, it's important because there are many products within there in a lot of scenarios. So we decided to build out a new API to deal with that. We launched that last year in April, and we'll talk about that a little more. Let's talk about Nederman here. They're a Swedish company that sells air purification systems, B2B, and they're present in multiple markets. They have many trading partners. They have complex pricing. Not too complex pricing, but a little bit. But one of the aspects that I wanted to show you, and we'll see how it works, is how their products are set up. So they have sort of a classic scenario of many variants per product. So one case for Nederman was a one product family with more than 3,000 product variations. So you'll see here one of our front-end guys navigating through 3,200 some odd products. It's just a great example of a platform that's been around for a long time. We've optimized. We know many of these edge case scenarios, so you can see how seamless that works. And it's just super important for B2B. Let me show you another one here. This is a cool one this is from Denmark, Fritz Hansen. They use Ucommerce to sell designer furniture. And you may ask, well, how difficult could that be? Well, let me show you an example of that. So this sofa here is a classic, and it comes in hundreds of variations because when you think about it, you can order this thing in many different materials: cloth, leather, different colors. That the legs that you see there at the bottom could be different designs and materials as well. And when you start to multiply those combinations across all the products they have, we're looking at 18 million different combinations of legs, material, cloth, colors, and all that good stuff. And that really requires something from the design of the platform and the solution build around it. So it actually ended up being like a hybrid situation where Ucommerce drives the presentation with Umbraco, and the ERP system is actually working in concert with this in a headless fashion to bring out all the combinations, because replicating them was too complicated, basically. All righty, so let's look at the API that powers that. So we wanted to come up with a new API for that, and we call it the Bolt API. One of the things in e-commerce is that we need to support search. So the Bolt API had the primary use case of creating a unified query, search, and facets API. So when you do that and build out your solutions, you do it using just one API. There's only one set of tools to learn to build faceted navigation where you find the right sizes and colors, to do full text search and all that. And it leverages a link-like experience. We sort of created a simplified version of link that doesn't have all the things that doesn't make sense, like grouping and things like that, to make it more seamless. And it was important for us to create an API that was safe by default. The reason for that is that we've built commerce APIs for many, many years. And the very first version of our API that we built back in 2009 had one really cool feature. It was super flexible. You could basically query everything. I was very, very proud of it. The challenge is that when it got into the hands of developers, it turned out that having all that power also meant that it was very difficult to work with. So it was super easy to create a super slow solution if you did not know exactly what you were doing. So with the Bolt API, we wanted to introduce something that was safe by default, meaning that it's always fast. That was one of the other design criteria here. And we wanted to make sure that it supplied this enterprise scalability so we can support the story of Umbraco and moving into the enterprise space. Just really quickly, this is what it looks like. It should be familiar for those of you who work with Link. What it does is it works against a search index, much like Examine. Only we needed more stuff like prices and things like that. So we had to build something else. And this is sort of roughly what it looks like. It works with the taxonomy that you set up within your catalog. So you can set up your own fields, you can boost, you can full text search, all that good stuff. It took many, many design sessions to get to this particular thing. It was a lot of fun to build. The architectural approach that we did is that we realized that a SQL Server database is incredibly slow. So what we have there at the left side of the system is Ucommerce within Umbraco. It runs on top of a database, of course. But then when time comes to actually access that information, the little gray arrow then in the middle is meant to indicate that we index that information into a search index that Bolt runs on top of. So every query issued at data is actually not going to the database, but it's going to the search indexes, which are super duper fast. So one of the things, it's all based on Lucene that you all know that sits within Umbraco. So we're just leveraging that same technology that you're familiar with. The challenge with Lucene is that it does not scale well, right? It sits on one server, it's a file in a file system, and that's it. So we needed something else to actually be able to scale out horizontally. And that's where Elasticsearch comes in, the provider-based nature of the Bolt API. So we call this opt-in flexibility. The idea is that when you need more power from the search engine, you can just reconfigure it and have it run on Elasticsearch. Same queries work against Lucene and Elasticsearch, but if you don't need it, you can just stay with Lucene. It's super easy to deploy. It does not require any infrastructure at all. Whereas, but it doesn't scale. But if you need scalability, you can opt into that complexity and deploy a search tier specifically scaled outside of Umbraco and Ucommerce. So you can sort of scale it out for Black Friday to your heart's content. And of course, what it ends up looking like is this. You have, the Bolt API running against multiple Elasticsearch providers, either, as a cloud service or something you manage yourself. It's super fast is what I'm trying to say with this one. We can sort of get results out of this in less than 20 milliseconds. The results, the test results that we got here was against 500,000 SKUs. We're running it against more, but this was just to give you an example of how the thing performs. So that is enterprise scalability. Why do we want it? Well, fast stores means more sales, right? If performance is not up to snuff, you will lose customers as a company, regardless of whether you're a B2B or a B2C. What it also enables us to do is scale independently of the CMS and Ucommerce. So if you're running a site within Umbraco Cloud, you can actually scale that thing outside of Umbraco Cloud. So only scaling the bits that you need. And you don't have to use it unless you need it or until you need it. So if you're developing, you don't have to deploy a bunch of advanced services to do that. Just run on Lucene, test your stuff out, deploy your stuff to production where you may be running either Lucene or Elasticsearch. Alrighty. Multi-channel. So this is super important for B2B. The ability to run multiple stores is key to solving many B2B scenarios. Let me just talk about that a little bit. The multi-channel capability of Ucommerce has been around forever. It was actually one of the primary reasons we built Ucommerce back in the day, because many of the platforms available back in the early 2000s did not support the concept of multiple stores. So we went ahead and built one that did ourselves. And it's proven really useful over the years. So the first thing is very classic B2B challenge is that we see one price per product and trading partner. So imagine that tractor part company I've been talking about from the beginning. There are 1,500 trading partners and there are around a couple of 100,000 products. If you do the math on that, that's a lot of price points. And how do we support it? Well, the way to do it, and I would have demoed this, but you're just gonna have to hear me talk you through it, is by using multiple price lists. But actually it starts somewhere else. It starts with creating one store per trading partner. So 1,500 stores within Umbraco and Ucommerce, representing each and every one of those trading partners. And then for each of those stores, we create a price list, which gives you a price point for a store and product, and voila, you have individual pricing per trading partner and product simply by setting it up. There is one thing to keep in mind here, and that is sometimes complexities mean that unit pricing is so complex that we cannot actually move it out of the ERP system. And that's where the headless solution comes into play. You simply, in that case, leverage it straight out of the ERP real time if it's fast enough. Another example for B2B is the ability to make products individually available for different trading partners. So it starts with that same foundation that we just talked about. Each trading partner has its own store. And what you do is you attach a catalog to each of those stores. It can be the same catalog or they can be different. And so, for example, for a pharmaceutical company in Sweden called OneMed, they had what they do is they service hospitals with all consumable items like rubber gloves, needles, things like that. But it's not the same products across every hospital. So each hospital is represented by one set of stores and a catalog with the products they have access to. So the system has around 70,000 products within it, but only a subset of that is available for each of the hospital in question. And this is just something that's configured within Ucommerce. Not super easy, but it's something achievable within the structures of the platform. This final one, this is my favorite one, D2C, going when B2B starts to go direct to consumer, that's where the D and C comes from. We've seen this movement, I think, over the last 8-9 years, something like that. B2Bs, traditional work through a retail channel not owned by themselves, but they're sort of saying, oh, well, maybe we can control the brand experience a little more by going straight to the consumer. So we're seeing more and more B2Bs wanting to go straight to the consumer. And you can see how the model I've been laying out over the last 5-7 minutes actually supports that quite neatly, because you will have all these B2B channels, right? One for each trading partner, and then you'll have one B2C channel per market that you're in. That's a pretty classic way of doing B2C. If you're present in the Americas or in the US, you would have one store for that, one in Europe, one in Asia Pacific, and you would have different pricing and things like that. And it just fits within that overall model of multi-store. So, but you just have multiple stores for B2C and multiple stores for B2B, but all running within the same system. The advantage of that being that you can leverage all the product information that you need for B2B. Many of those are the same for B2C. They just need a little bit more to be more sellable to end customers. But basically, you can use those same principles before of multiple price lists, multiple stores to ultimately create a D2C situation within the infrastructure already established. And with enterprise scalability, it's fine. You have many customers visiting the site. So just an interesting way of using multi-store within Umbraco and Ucommerce. Just an example of B2B and B2C, American Standard toilets and things. Really quickly, recap, I'm running out of time here, so just want to make sure that I get to the last bit. Multi-channel, what you're going to find in multi-channel in a B2B context is, individual pricing, one per trading partner. The solution is quite simple. You have one store, one price list per trading partner, and off you go. The one question you need to ask is, are there any exceptions to the rule? Are there any tiered pricings in there? Are there really complex price rules like prices that vary by historic order volume or stuff like that, which may require you to move to a pure headless price calculation model where you actually talk directly to the ERP, because it's the system that expresses the complexity of everything. And I'll talk about how to do that in a little bit. Individual product range availability, same thing again, multiple catalogs, one for each trading partner. Some products are shared across trading partners, some are not. D2C, having multiple channels, some aimed at B2C, some aimed at B2B, but it's the same core concept we're talking about. So you don't have to sort of learn something new. Of course, within Umbraco, the story is actually quite interesting because B2B sites tend to be very utilitarian in their approach to e-commerce. It's a lot about quick ordering, lots of plain text lists and things like that, so you can bang out an order really quickly. Whereas the B2C story tends to be more elaborate. There's more storytelling and things like that. So within Umbraco, it's quite common to see multiple websites for that as well. A B2B website that requires login to present all the right price lists and all that good stuff. And a B2C site within Umbraco that caters more towards guiding the customer towards the right product they need. So quite interesting content and commerce case there as well. Last thing I want to talk about, and it's just circling back to the price scenario there that we talked about before. In B2B, if you have sort of simply enough price situations, one price per trading partner, it's feasible to synchronize that information into the e-commerce platform. It's just a lot of stuff, but that's fine because the search tier we have is so fast that it's okay. But sometimes that there's so much complexity around pricing in B2B scenarios that reproducing the price logic within the e-commerce platform is just not feasible. We want to avoid at all costs getting ourselves into a situation where we have the B2B logic over here, and then we're duplicating that same logic within the e-commerce platform. It's not a winning strategy. So what we want to do is we want to take one of them out of the equation and just have the one and then integrate with that price service that exists within the ERP system. And that's where Framework First comes into play. The entire platform of Ucommerce was built with this particular concept in mind, where Framework First enables you to basically customize any aspect of the platform, including the price engine. So you could actually grab prices not from our read optimized storage, but from the ERP direct or from another system like a PIM system. Good. That is Ucommerce and Umbraco in a B2B context. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the future as well. But before we do that, let's just recap what we learned today. Headless commerce, it's a great way of integrating into the existing ecosystem and leverage all those moving pieces already in place. Also a great way to position new pieces, and over time, as the solution matures, replace pieces with other pieces that are more appropriate for the current events in the company. Enterprise scalability within Umbraco and Ucommerce to deal with many products and complex products. It's a lot of stuff. Typically within B2B, we had that example from Dinnerman with 3,200 variants per product family. It really quickly adds up. So you want something that's read fast and able to deal with all that stuff. Multi-channel leveraged in B2B. So basically, the classic multi-channel of having a website and store working in concert to deliver an experience to a customer can be leveraged in B2B for tailoring the product ranges that are available for a trading partner, as well as the price information available to a trading partner. And then finally, Framework First, you will I usually go around saying that it's not a question of if you need to customize a platform. It's more a question of when you need to do it and how much. And that's what Framework First caters to. And B2B in particular is very, very, rich in complex business requirements. That's why it's so fun to work with, basically. And you know this from Umbraco as well. And I guess that's why many of you use Umbraco, because it's so customizable. Well, the same thing is true for Ucommerce. So that's it on B2B e-commerce. Last thing that I have for you is just a little bit of a talk about the future for Ucommerce and how we look at Umbraco going forward. So I'm super happy to tell you that we closed a round of capital a month ago, and we're actually busy building new product teams to support this vision that we're pursuing going forward. And the vision is basically this: what we found over time is that Ucommerce started in 2009 by supporting multiple sales channels, but only on the web. And it was through Umbraco, because that multi-channel capability we've been talking about throughout the session was available just to the web. But e-commerce is becoming vital across many more channels, in store, physical retail stores, across apps, across other systems, kiosks and things like that. And so it's important for us that we follow along and become, available for all these channels, because it looks like e-commerce is becoming a new infrastructure category on the web, basically, and we want to try and follow that trend. So what does that mean? Well, it means that Ucommerce is going to the cloud. We're going to sort of start cloudifying Ucommerce more and more. And in fact, we sort of have a nice 3-step plan that involves us building out a new headless API with a completely new headless team that we just completed hiring for. So by the end of the year, our goal is to ship a new headless web API for Ucommerce to enable you to build new solutions, not just using .NET, but also using JavaScript or other technologies if you want. By the end of the year, our goal is to start supporting .NET Core, start porting Ucommerce into Umbraco 9 once all those extensibility points become available. In fact, I believe we have a chat with Umbraco next week, along with other package developers, to talk about how that could, what that could look like. So we're going to go to .NET Core, integrate Ucommerce within Umbraco 9, so you can work with the latest and greatest, of course. And then after that, towards the end of the year, we're going to establish a third product team, which is focused on building our cloud infrastructure, because our goal is, starting 2023, to start offering Ucommerce cloud to you, so you don't have to deal with upgrades and things like that. Basically, a situation where you can either pick Ucommerce on-prem or in the cloud. And then as time proceeds, we're going to turn Ucommerce into a cloud-native offering. We can just go new, here's your new Ucommerce installation, and enjoy. Go ahead and knock yourself out with all the awesome capabilities within Ucommerce. What we want is basically to be able to deliver features to you faster without you having to install and upgrade and things like that. We want to be able to deliver a new feature within a couple of days. And that's what the managed cloud is the first steps towards, and the cloud native stuff, even more important. And we're already started doing the research on all this good stuff. At the end of the day, if you're wondering who's Ucommerce for, what is it we want to do? Well, what we want to do is we want to deal with mission critical e-commerce. We don't just want to run a cart here and there. We want to be the piece that if the system goes down running Ucommerce, it matters to a company. We want to be there where we're supporting the core of the business. And we want to do it for mid-sized merchants. Ucommerce has always been in that particular space, and Umbraco as well. And I think that the combination of Umbraco and Ucommerce is really powerful in this particular segment. And of course, we want to do it with partners. We've always done that. We have a very clear partner strategy. We do not implement ourselves. We do not deliver any services to customers. Just like Umbraco, we want to do it through you. We want to create opportunity, like Anders was talking about before, for you, because at the end of the day, you know the US market, you know the European market, wherever you may be, you know that particular market in more detail than we could ever do. And we want to do this with you across websites, app systems, and any other channels available. And we're doing it over the next 3 years. So it's going to be awesome. I think I'm very excited about this stuff. If you're interested, we are working on an in-depth B2B webinar with Umbraco, and you can write us on this email if you want. We did not have time to set up any sort of sign up or anything like that, but do get in touch with us on sales-us@ucommerce.net if you're curious about all this stuff. As you can tell, I could talk about this for hours and hours if I am allowed. Unfortunately, not today. Well, maybe fortunate for you. So with that, I just want to thank you very much for attending the US Fest and this presentation. And I just want to wish you a really, really awesome conference. I know it's usually a blast, so do enjoy your day. Thank you very much for listening.